Dear attendees, last year after OXP, I met a client who told me that he was spending 8 to 12 hours a month analyzing the attendances of his employee. He was calculating with his calculator or manually all the extra hours, the missing hours of his employee, and was checking when the employee forgot to check out and in. Can you believe it? In 2024, still spending that much time on an activity that could be fully digitalized? If you're like my client, you're at the right place today. I'm Emily Decoq, business analyst and HR expert, and today I will explain you how to get the most out of attendance in version 18. You have first of all here a QR code, but you will have it at the end for your question. We have noticed a real shift in the way attendances are usually seen. It's not anymore about controlling the absence or the presence, but more about identify tendencies and increase productivity thanks to the management of the attendances. In fact, for instance, if you realize that your employees are working a lot of extra hours, it could give you the clue that maybe you should hire someone new. Or if they are lacking some hours, you should pay attention to the fact that they are not losing their motivation, or that maybe you could reorganize a bit the task that they are doing every day. It came to our attention that the well-being of your employee and how the HR in general are seen has really changed lately, and the manager are seeing that in a different way than before. And it's also what appears in a study of Gartner about the strategic business priorities for CEO. In fact, workforce is in third position, which represents an increase of 33% since 2024. This is why at Odoo, we believe that it's really important to give you a user-friendly tool in order to keep your talent and to analyze in a more efficient way all the attendances of your employee. Thanks to all the feedback and questions that we received the last years, we realized, and we did last year, a complete revamp of the attendance app in Odoo 17, and we kept improving this app this year with a lot of new features that we will discover together. Among the new features, you will first of all see the validation of the extra hours and the automatic checkouts, but I don't want to spoil you too much now, so we will discover together all the new features of this new version. For that, I will enter the app directly, so you have here the attendance app. And if you already attend the talk of what's new in HR, you might have seen all of these new features, but I will deep dive a bit more in it. First of all, when you download the application, you will have an onboarding, so a small tutorial on how to use the attendance app. First of all, you have the kiosk mode that you already discovered last year. This kiosk mode allows you and allows your employee and workers to check in and out without having any user. So it means that if you work in a company, you could connect to your database on an iPad or any other device and just open the kiosk mode. For that, you have 3 different ways of checking in. First of all, the manual one. So you can just select the name of your employee will arrive and select his name, her name in this case. You have the badge, so it looks like this. So you can just scan. Oops. Perfect. And the RFID token, this one is a bit less used, but you have kind of a tag and you can just, with a reader, check in and check out. You will discover that the kiosk mode has a bit changed as well. It's more user-friendly than last year. The other way of checking in is the Sistre mode. For that, you have to be user of the database, but it's really easy because thanks to the red dots here, you can just check in and check out quite easily. But yeah, as a reminder, you have to be user of the database in order to use this Sistre mode. So why did we work a bit on the onboarding? Because we realized that when you enter the attendance app, it wasn't really clear on what way you had to check in and out. And this is why you will have this small tutorial also to try the kiosk mode without having, because maybe you already saw it, but when you open the kiosk mode, you will be automatically logged out to avoid that your employee might, for instance, have access to the database. And so with this new tutorial of the try the kiosk mode, you will be able to to access the kiosk mode without having to log in after again. So first thing first, when you enter the app, you will have the Gantt view. you already had the gain view last year, but you will realize here that some things has changed. For instance, all your employees are appearing now in the database. Before, only the employee who had already checked in before were displayed here on the screen. So it means that you don't even have to ask yourself, okay, who is supposed to be there or not, because now you will have all the employees by default appearing in the list here. Another new thing is if I unzoom a bit, depending on the working schedule defined in your company or in the employees form, you will have the information of when everyone is supposed to be working. So here you can see that a normal day would be from 8 to 5, with a lunch break from 12 to 1. You also have the possibility, as before, to select week, month, quarter, or year. And the new thing is that you can select a different period of time, so you can choose from the middle of a month to another middle of the month. As I already showed, you have the zoom in and out, depending on what you want to see, and the button here which allows you to come back to today. Today I'm the manager of this company, and I would like to see and have a quick overview on who worked last week and who was there, and maybe the amount of hours everyone worked. So for that, nothing more easy. I will just select week. I will go to last week, so I have a full week to show you. And here as well, you have a lot of information. First of all, in green, it's the same colors as last week, but in green you will have the information of who is supposed to, of who worked enough or maybe not enough. So as long as it's not in red, it means that, for instance, here Doris Cole, she did work 40 hours on the 40 hours expected. Abigail is missing some hours. You have the information because the box is not completely full. And she is missing 5 hours, as you can see. In red, you will see the extra hours. So it's the case here with Alicia. She worked, in fact, 44 hours on 40 expected to be worked. Here, I think, maybe the contrast is not as good as on my screen, but you can see the extra hours in light gray. So here it appears a bit differently. And something else that you can also do as a manager, for instance, if you only want to have some person of your team, you can select my team, and then I'm the manager of those 4 persons, so it appears like that. Okay, if you open an attendance here, if I click on it, it has also been a bit changed, because now you have the delete button, so you can way more easily delete an attendance. Before you had to go in the form view, select the attendance, and through the button action you could delete it. And in the details button, you directly arrive in the form view, where you can see the mode that has been used to check in and out, and you have the chatter. So probably if you know Odoo, you already know the concept of the chatter, but it will keep track of every change. If, for instance, you moved a bit the attendances of your employee, it will appear here in the chatter. And you could also leave a note. I will show you after in what case it could be interesting. There is something here in this screen that attracted my attention, is the fact that Alicia worked 4 extra hours. I think it's a feature that you were all expecting, is the validation of the extra hours. In fact, in my company, it's not because you work more that for sure the hours you worked are granted. So I would like here to validate the extra hours. As from the version 18, you now have the possibility to do that. But how can you do that? First option, if you don't have that much employee, you can just click on the attendance. Here I showed you earlier that she did work extra hours, and we can know that because it's in light gray. And you see here 4 extra hours to approve. So you have the timeline with the fact that it still has to be approved or not. In this case, I would like only to approve 2 extra hours. I will discuss maybe with her to understand why she worked 4 extra hours, but I think it's a bit too much. Maybe she will be able to work a bit less another day, but in this case, I will only approve 2. So you see that the status has changed. I will save and close. In what case the chatter could be useful? Here, if I go in details, I could log a note, tag Alicia, and ask her, can you, give me more explanation. Okay, there is a, you understood. So she will receive a notification, and she will be able then to explain a bit more why she worked those hours. But what is really useful is that the 4 hours that she did work as extra hours are still appearing here. So it's not because I validated only 2 hours that we will miss and lose the information that she, like at the beginning, worked 4 hours. Okay, maybe you will tell me, okay, this is not really, it works well in a case of only 4 employees, but what happens if I have 100 of employees? Like, this solution, of course, is not really convenient. So for that, we have the management menu here. And there, what do you see? You have the list of all the employees who worked extra hours or also missing hours. We will go to the missing hours a bit later. So, for instance, here you could connect once a month and decide to approve or refuse all the extra hours worked by your employee. So it's way more convenient to do that from this menu. In the end, it's the same. If you open it, you can approve or refuse it. If you remember, I just validated 2 hours for Alicia Demo, so I would like just to show you how it looks like in the employees form. So if I go to Alicia employee, you can see here that she has indeed 2 extra hours, and that she was supposed, like she worked 8 hours, but then 2 extra hours were worked more. Okay, what happens, for instance, if your employee didn't really work more, but she forgot to check out, she or he? In this case, we also have the solution. It's a new feature called automatic checkout. So it means that if, for instance, Alicia explained me, no, sorry, I didn't really work 4 extra hours, I just forgot to check out. In this case, you can define what we call a tolerance. So after, for instance, in my company, people are supposed to work until 5. So I could decide to add like 2 hours of tolerance. So it means that at 7 p.m., all my employees will be automatically checked out. How can you keep track of that? We have developed a special filter for that, so you can click on automatically checked out. Here I'm on today, so there's no one, but if I select the month of September, you will see where and when and who forgot to check out. If I open the attendance here and go to details, first of all, you see automatic checkout. And in the chatter, you also have a message saying that this attendance was automatically checked out because the employee exceeded the allowed time for the scheduled work hours. So it really gives you the information, and you can really keep track of who forgot to check out, and you also avoid to have wrong attendances. We saw the case where your employee worked extra hours, are automatically checked out, but what happens if your employee is working less than what he was supposed to do? In this case, we also have a new feature that we call missing hours. For that, I will again filter on the months. So you will see plenty of little red square. So it's a filter that allows that to appear. And again, it works a bit the same as the automatic checkout. If you click on the red square, so first of all, it's quite visible because you will have the information with the red color that there is something wrong. And here you can see that the extra hours are -8. And again, if you go in the details of the app, you have the checkout and check-in, which is technical. And also there is an automatic message saying that this attendance was automatically created to cover an unjustified absence on that day. With these 3 new features, we are now able to cover a lot of more and more use cases and to have way more flexibility in the way you are managing the attendances. As you know, Odoo is an integrated software, so of course there are some integration between attendance and other apps. And one that I didn't mention yet is the integration with time off. If you're using Odoo, you probably know that in other applications, in the Gantt view, which is this view, you see the time off. It wasn't the case before, so it wasn't really convenient, because when you were seeing that someone was supposed to work but in fact didn't check in or check out, you couldn't tell if it was because he was supposed to be off or maybe sick or maybe any other unjustified absence. As from now, you will see because it's in gray, you don't really see well the contrast here on the screen, but it's quite visual. I can tell that myself, I was on holiday last week. This is why it's in gray here, and this is also why there is no attendances. You can make the difference between, like here, the 2nd of September, it's white and empty, so it probably means that Abigail was supposed to work and something happened. In my case, I was off last week, so it's in gray. What if I, by mistake, or if in the end I'm working that day, I will add an attendance. Yeah, sorry, the date is not correct. Okay, it's because I just checked in with the sys remote, so he considered that I'm currently at work, so it won't work. But imagine last week if I decided to come one day and I check in and out, it will be automatically computed as extra hours. Why? Because if your employee is off, he's not supposed to work, and then if he checks in, of course, it will be computed as extra hours. But what is really good as from now is that you won't have the extra hours automatically added in the counter of the employee. You will still have this possibility to validate or refuse the extra hours and to discuss with your employee to know, okay, you were off, you still came, why, and then decide if you approve or not the extra hours. So it means that as from this new version, you have in one view all the information you need because you have all your employee displayed in one view. Who is supposed to be there, who is not supposed to be there, the holidays, so you know that here I was supposed to be off, so I'm not supposed to check in and out. You have the working schedule, the weekend, and so you don't need anything else to know who is supposed to work at the current time. This is quite useful, but you might also need to have all this information with numbers. So in this case, you still have the reporting menu. We also worked a bit on that. In the measure, you have the balance, the difference, the expected hours, and the worked hours. Here, I would like to see, to have an overview of the month with all the measures. So for that, you will realize that worked hours are the hours worked by your employee, depending on when they checked in and when they checked out. The expected hours are the hours that they are supposed to work, depending on their working schedule. But there is something a bit different is that, for instance, I was off last week, so it means that the expected hours are a bit less. You can see 128 for the line here, instead of 168 for a full time. So it will also consider how many hours you're supposed to work, but taking into account when you were off or if you were sick and so on. I don't know if you remember, but for Alicia, if we take her case, I validated I wanted to take the month of September. I validated 2 extra hours, so I didn't explain yet, but here the difference, it makes sense, is the difference between the expected hours and the worked hours, and the balance will only display the validated extra hours. So here she was supposed to work 168 hours, she worked 172, so there is a difference of 4, but as I only validated 2 extra hours, you will only see 2 in the report. So you always keep the initial information of the hours worked, so you can still readjust a bit. If in the end you discuss with her and you realize that the 4 extra hours were really worth it, then you could still approve the 4 hours and the report will be adjusted according to that. You could also see some negative hours. So I think I didn't precise that it was for Anita, but when we checked the missing hours features, we saw that in fact she was missing 8 hours. So the balance is really useful because it will always compute the difference between what she was supposed to work and will take into account the negative hours, but also the extra hours. So again, here in only one view, you will have all the information you need in order to, as I said at the beginning, identify some tendency, the extra hours, the missing hours, who forgot to check out, and so on, and check in. If we go back to the new features in the version 18, you have then the Gantt view, which has been a bit reviewed. The kiosk mode, which is redesigned with the onboarding and the small tutorial that I showed at the beginning of the talk. The validation of the extra hours, the automatic checkout, the reporting, which has been improved with the difference, the balance, and the absence management will compute which will compute the missing hours. So with this new version, you can cover even more use cases and have way more flexibility than before. You can still identify tendency, but which are closer to the reality of your company, because as I said, if in your business, when someone is working more, it doesn't mean that for sure you will have the possibility to take a time off, for these extra hours, or maybe to get paid for these extra hours. And then, thanks to this new version, there is also less risk of wrong attendances. It means that Odoo has got your back. Going back to my client, long story short, I met him a few months ago, and he was using attendance for a few months now, and he told me that instead of spending 8 to 12 hours a month, he was only spending 1 to 2 hours. Can you imagine the gain of time it was for him? So in conclusion, if you use attendance with Odoo, you will reduce massively the time spent on data entry. So don't wait any longer and do as my client, start using Attendance App. If you have any question, you can just scan the QR code here and
Thank you so much, Emily. Congratulations on that presentation. You did an amazing job showing us all the great new features of attendance. So let's take a look at some of the questions. So the first question is saying, how can we be alerted if an employee does not come to work? No pointing at entrance. I think it means like not checking in. Yeah.
But for that, first of all, if you connect to the Gan view here, I didn't mention it, but it was already there in the previous version. In green, you have all the people currently working, and you also have a filter for that. So you can directly see, for instance, today that this afternoon Abigail wasn't at work, neither Doris and Ernest. So you can have the information from here. And also with the missing hours, if he didn't check in, there is a scheduled action that turns, and then it will automatically detect that there is something missing. So the missing hours feature doesn't mean that the person didn't work at all. Maybe he just forgot to check in. But that's why you have the possibility to filter on those person and those attendances, and then to maybe either leave a message in the chat or either discuss with your employee.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the next question is saying, how does one convert the extra hours into an overtime charge? Is there a perfect solution, or what's the most realistic workaround? So I believe that the question is referring to actually paying the overtime.
Yeah, for that it's also a feature we're working on currently. I think in this case you could, for instance, validate only the extra hours that should be taken as time off, and then put the other on the extra hours that should be paid. But depending on if you are using payroll after that, we should work on a workaround for that, but you would still track manually how many hours are paid and how many hours are maybe take as time off. Usually the validation of extra hour is more used for when your employee is taking the extra hours as time off.
Okay, so the third question is it possible to use attendance for people who have work at a specific time? For example, a nurse who has a shift to respect cannot compensate the late arrival by staying later. I think the question's a bit confusing.
Which one is this? Is it possible to use attendance?
I think this is a specific use case, so maybe you can come later
just to clarify, because I don't know if you are referring to the tolerance zone, where you can say that if your nurse, for instance, here is staying 30 minutes more, it's not considered as extra hours. There is another feature that I didn't mention today, but I don't know. Whoever has a question, you can still come at the booth so we can clarify a bit.
Yeah. So the next one is, should we approve all the extra hours, even a few minutes?
As soon as you activate, because it's a configuration on the validation of the extra hours, you could also decide that there is no validation at all and that it's automatically granted. But as soon as there is extra hours, you will have it.
Yeah. So is it possible to approve multiple extra hours from different employees at the same time?
Yes, I didn't show this, but in the management button, you can do it quite fast by approving here, but also if you select multiple employee, you have the approve and refuse button, which appear here above, so you could still do it massively.
Okay. Yeah, so the next question I think you already answered in the previous answer, but is the validation of extra hours activated by default?
Yeah, so yeah, if I quickly show you, you have here in the configuration the extra hours validation. So either it's automatically approved, either you have the possibility to approve it or not, or refuse.
Perfect. How does the missing hours work? Can you explain how you detect it and when?
So the thing is that it's a bit technical, but there is a cron action which is turning I'm not sure. Yeah, it's a bit technical as I said, but it will create, for instance, here an attendance of 1 second, and this is how it will detect that, for instance, here in red. It's like, as you can see, there is only 1 second of attendances, and this is how the Odoo is computing the fact that there are some hours missing. Here I showed the example where you have 8 hours missing, but the thing is that in the management menu, you also have, you probably realized, the extra hours in negative, so if it's not a full day, it won't appear, but you will have then the extra hours here, the negative extra hours, which is not really extra hours, but you got me.
Yeah, I think that's all the time we have for the questions. Thank you again, Emily. And
it's a pleasure. Thank you.
For the
Anna.
presentation.